Welcome to Cox Notes. It's been some time since I've posted anything and created a episode on this channel, and there's a lot of reasons why. I won't get into that. But I felt like this was just one of the best ways to put across some of my thoughts that I'm having right now. Any of you that have watched this, any at all, know that I created Cox Notes primarily to talk about Colorado. Uh, I've always been more focused on Western Colorado. Today, I want to talk about a real specific part of Colorado, which is in Ouray County. It's known as the Billy Creek Wildlife Management Area. And what I'm about to say you may not agree with it, but if you don't, that's fine. But I do think I'm offering you something to think about. So allow me a few minutes of your precious time and listen to what I have to say, please. You have all seen the signs designating wildlife management areas. Wildlife area? Well, I'm not too sure anymore. Wildlife management? Well, I'm not too sure about that either. To refer to an area as a wildlife area, one would assume that it is an area in which wildlife is there, presumed to be there. To call an area a wildlife management area, one would assume that the wildlife is being monitored and managed. I'm beginning to think that neither of these various descriptions apply to the Billy Creek and Becker tracts of land in Ouray County, which are controlled by the current Colorado Parks and Wildlife. There may be a few living people that have spent more time hunting and recreating in the Billy Creek and Burrow Creek and Chaffee Creek drainages. Maybe there's a few that have spent more time than I have, but they're damn few. In fact, my first big game hunting experience took place in the bottom of Burrow Creek before I was old enough to have a big game license. I think it was the fall of 1961, the first time I was among those friends of my dad's who camped in the trees that bordered Burrow Creek. Some of those names still dwell in my memory. Names like Donald Doherty, better known as Red, his son Gary, Lewis Hudgens, his son Roger, Ray Heck, and I think some brothers of his were there now and then. There were others. But the point is that my dad and those friends of his literally taught me how to hunt, and we were relatively successful. I killed my first deer in that area in 1963, and an elk a few years later. Later, three of my sons spent their early hunting experiences in that same area. Well, while I'm banging my own drum, let me add a few other facts. I have been an avid hunter, shooting sports participant, and outdoorsman for most of my life. During my 20 plus years in law enforcement, I worked shoulder to shoulder with numerous wildlife officers, and I've been an advocate of Colorado wildlife for a long time, for as long as I can remember. It has been part of my life. I've been a firearms training instructor, and I taught hunter education for 42 years. I sat on the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Sportsman's Roundtable for several years. I tell you all this to help justify the reasons that I sometimes get upset at what is happening. During the decade that I lived out on the eastern plains of Colorado, I returned almost every year to camp and hunt in the Billy Creek area. I was often accompanied by friends, relatives, and colleagues, and enjoyed almost every minute of it. We even had a sheriff and some of his deputies from Louisiana one year. They took some, I think, 3 or 4 deer and left us with some gator tail and some great hot sauce. For a number of years, I even had permission to hunt some of the private land that adjoined the Billy Creek and the Chaffee Gulch area, and I I'd be hard pressed to say how many deer, elk, turkey, grouse. I'd be hard pressed to say how many of them I took over the years and brought them home and put them in my freezer. But things have really changed, and I think have changed in the wrong direction sometimes. Many of the changes have not been good for the area, in my opinion, and many of them have been based on all the wrong assumptions. Among those changes is the fact that they have eliminated camping within the Billy Creek Wildlife Area. There used to be some dispersed camping, and the pictures you saw of my friends are in front of a tent that was in that Billy Creek area. Now, they said they stopped the camping in the interest of wildlife, but I'm not so sure that's true. I have it from a very reliable source that one of the big reasons for stopping the dispersed camping in the Billy Creek area was because some people assumed that if you limited that camping or done away with it completely, it would force those who normally camp there to go over to the nearby Ridgeway State Park. And then, of course, they over promoted everything to the point where now you need reservations well in advance to camp in the Ridgeway Park. And that literally discouraged some of my good friends from coming on. They're coming out here to hunt. It just didn't work out that they could make reservations in time. I could go on, but before I get into the reason behind this diatribe, let me point out that I still frequently go up Billy Creek, sometimes just to be by myself and sit and think about the past and bring back a few memories. Other times, my wife and I will get in our side by side and we will just drive up over Billy Creek and down into the Beckett Draw and back, and just spend some quality time together. Maybe have lunch up on top. Those kind of things. I still spend a lot of time there. But I'm going to tell you that I've been up there several times in the last 2, 3, 4 years. And more often than not, we never see any wildlife on those trips. We've seen a few doe deer on occasion, 1 or 2 of them maybe out in the field if we happen to be out there. But for the most part, I think the big game activity is the lowest that I've ever seen it in all the years. And that bothers me. That bothers me a lot. And now the latest and the big reason for this diatribe. It's a fact now, has largely because of the guidelines for the introduction. I won't use the reintroduction because I don't believe that's what it is. The introduction of wolves, largely because of the guidelines that have to be followed. Um, the Billy Creek area is, as I've been told, on the list of possible places where wolves will be turned loose this next season. Now, given the fact that I have pointed out, I don't even know how I can say that even the facts that I've pointed out so far should make one assume that this is not a good idea. Um, Wolves eat other animals. That's what they do, and they are very efficient hunters and very efficient predators. They will kill during they'll kill during the whole time of the year. They have to eat the whole time of the year. Um, and if the deer, they will pursue deer. They'll kill the young deer, especially. They'll kill the fawns. They'll kill the does that are in post birth state and a little bit weakened. They'll kill the young bucks. And when they determine that the deer and the elk in the area are maybe a little bit too difficult, guess where they'll go next? They'll go after the cattle herds, and they will kill the young calves especially. And now, I'll tell you, any rancher will tell you that the loss of a young heifer calf is a significant impact on the health of their herd. And the loss of a young bull calf, which becomes a steer, that directly takes away from that rancher's income for that year. I mean, it's absolutely direct. And I think the compensation that they've come up with is ridiculous too. So I have to believe that if they put wolves into this Billy Creek wildlife area and there's not enough wildlife to go around for the wolves, then they start roaming and they start hunting and they get into the ranch. And the first thing that comes to my mind, of course, is the cattle herd of the Jutton family, which is up there. The Juttons have a significant amount of property up there, and they run a significant herd of cattle. And believe me, these wolves will not say, well, we don't want to upset the Juttons. They go in and kill what they want to kill, and that's the way it's going to be. So that's the big reason that I'm looking at this. And, you know, if you look at all the statements of the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, they all call the Parks and Wildlife a enterprise, an enterprise agency, which means that they're supported by the funds that the sale of hunting licenses and fishing licenses, that's what supports them, okay? Now, if you start limiting them to the point where they stop paying, and not for the reasons that they may tell you they are, but a lot of times it's purely political reasons that they're doing this stuff, and it's time. It seems to me that Colorado Parks and Wildlife is slowly being taken over by the very people that voted this ridiculous wolf introduction program into being in the first place. And they are so happy that the wolves are introduced into areas that don't directly affect them. They're not taking them down to the Boulder City Park, for crying out loud. They're releasing them in places where the deer, the elk, and the cattle herds and the sheep herds are being affected. And then they, oh, we'll compensate you and blah, blah. No, leave things like they were is where I'm kind of. We need now, and this is my opinion, and this is the reason that I'm going on this diatribe. We need now to start putting people into the Colorado legislature that have the gall and to, I don't even know if gall's the right word. I'd like to use a different word, but I won't. But they have the gumption to get in there and do something about this. And it frankly will mean rescinding this law, and that is going to be difficult to do because of the voting bloc. So what we need to do is get the right people in, and I'm telling you, we need to start clear down at the city councils and the school boards and the county commissions. That's where we need to start on this, because these people become bigger. They go up bigger, and once they get into power, boy, they're hard to get rid of. So I think it's time that we took a real close look at this and get the right people into those jobs. Anyway, that's enough. I thank you so much for listening to this, and I hope that I haven't bored you to death, and I hope that you can see my side of the issue. If you don't, that's fine, but I think just common sense says we have to do something about this, and we certainly don't need wolves in the Billy Creek Wildlife Area. So I'm Bob Cox, and this is Cox Notes. I encourage you to subscribe. I might try to be a little bit more active if they don't toss me off for what I'm saying here. And we'll see you next time. So for now, so long. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much.